Hi, everyone, and welcome to this series of Idiot Proof Your Work Processes. I'm Marquis Caldwell with ClickLearn, and today I have with me.
I'm Sija, Business Change Consultant with BR1.
I'm Katharine Corber-Allen. I'm at BR1 and I'm Business Systems Trainer.
And today we're really going to just be focusing on how we can make your lives a lot easier when it comes to these business transformation projects. So one of the things that we really run across is how often are people still taking screenshots in their day-to-day processes whenever there needs to be an update for their ERP system, their CRM system, or just any third-party application that they're using inside of their system. So when you think about creating documentation and these processes, a lot of times you start to screenshot a step here, screenshot a step there, and we really see that as it's taking a lot of time from the actual work, and we want to provide everyone, like those subject matter experts, with a tool to actually work in their flow. And this way, in the future, whenever they need to train people on these steps, then they can then just provide all of that information to the end users. But enough about me. It's definitely great to hear what the others have to say.
So at BR1, we see the same three problems every single time. There's no spare capacity. There's no team to do it all for you. There's no set trainer to develop all of this content. The second one is the SMEs. They're at capacity already, right? They don't have another 40 hours per week to get all of this documented.
And then with that, kind of, what are some of the challenges you see as a result of teams not having, the time required to actually do all of this documentation correctly, and then the buildups that come with just like a flooded support desk?
There's a lot of inconsistent documentation. There's missing steps in processes. I think the other thing is that the format is quite hard to follow and it's never consistent across all of the different work streams. So no one really knows how to follow the documentation. I think people don't ignore processes because they want to. It's because that information is really hard to find and then follow.
Nice. And that's a good point. What's this idea of like inconsistent training? I hear that a lot from like different teams. Some people, maybe they're doing videos, they're doing screen dot shots, they have people in different departments doing these steps. What are some of the inconsistencies that you're seeing that's really dragging the teams down?
So I think format is definitely one of them. For some people, or most people that are creating this content, they're not instructional designers. So what happens is, with one documentation, you've got a screenshot with multiple arrows on it, and people have to almost find what step is first, second, and third. And sometimes it is just that, what you've said. There's so many different formats. They're not sure of the order to follow. And, the information isn't always there. You might say, click on step 1, 2, and 3, but the instructions on why isn't always explained.
Yeah, that's super valid. Once I was working at another location, and then someone had left the organization and he left his documentation, and I think it was twice, and it was really embarrassing. I had to call him to ask what the documentation meant, even though he didn't work at the company anymore. And I'm like, yeah, I'm sorry, man. I hate to call you about this, but no one else knows how to do
What is
this.
it? Yeah.
So we've been working together for quite some years now. And one of the things that I really found that's great with this partnership is you guys can really understand a lot more on how the customers are working, how the clients are setting things up as far as getting their functional consultants in order, and just all of the other stakeholders. What are some of the benefits you've seen as you're a bit closer on that day to day than myself of how the customers are using both your services and ours?
Well, we've worked with organisations that came to us with nothing. So no SOPs, no materials, go live approaching, and not a single sort of guide that was written. In the past, that would have been a crisis, weeks of SME time, and still wouldn't get there.
I think some of the other things that we've seen is training is probably the one topic that's left right till the end. So there's this panic to get all of that documented and people trained. And the good thing about ClickLearn is, whether you want a video or you want people to have hands-on experience of the system, it does it all. You just record the process once and it's got multiple different formats. And then you can do the language translations as well. So you record one process and you get so much more with it. I think that's been the real difference for us, where we can get in there really quickly and turn all of their documentation around and deliver training using ClickLearn as well.
Nice. Do you have I don't need to say any names, but like an industry specific example of a customer that's really taken advantage of working with BR1 and then using ClickLearn as that supporting tool? So it'd be great to hear a bit more about how you guys are able to create that bridge between the individuals themselves and then also the technology. So this way everything is working in tandem.
We had sort of like this sort of help call where they left the training to the last minute and they weren't able to, we needed to deliver training to 1,000 users, have the documentation ready. So like every sort of, sometimes companies, they leave it to the last minute. And what we did is we were able to use ClickLearn and produce those training guides at a faster pace than if we were going to do it manually. And in the end, we ended up training all of the users. So we did 150 guides and we trained, and we had 40 training sessions, and they all got trained on time. And, they were happy with the response to ClickLearn and the way that we delivered the training as well.
So that's great to hear. Just for like kind of putting the concept in our heads, what is last minute to you? Is last minute like within a month? Kind of what's a time scale people can take with them?
For creating that documentation, really, I mean, last minute is 3 months ahead of go live, especially if you've got so many processes, because you've got to spend time with the business understanding what their processes are and how they're using it. Because with a lot of these technologies, there's standard ways of doing things, but if you've got integrations, we need to understand what those integrations are, and we spend a lot of time understanding the business so we can create that content as close as possible to their everyday lives and what they're going to be doing, multiple scenarios. But people leave it a lot later than that, and we come on board and we've got a library of, say, D365 guides that are just the standard documentation where we can quickly adapt that. So there are shorter timescales we can work to, but ideally at least the minimum of 3 months, so we can do it effectively. Because whatever it is that you're trying to learn, if you look back at driving or learning to ride a bike, you don't do that in a day, and we can't expect people to do that. It has to be a journey. So it starts with all the communication throughout the project, and they really understand what's changing for them, and then we come along and do the training. And then after go live, you continue to support that. And ClickLearn definitely allows you to do that full journey, especially post go live with the UXP as well.
That's great to hear. And then you mentioned that you have like, I mean, I know this, but for the people that aren't listening, you already have like that standard content in place. How long does it take you to do those adaptations, and kind of how do you work with the team to create those adaptations to their processes?
Yeah, sure. So we use the replay feature. So if they've got their own system and we've recorded the standard D365 guides, for example, we can use that replay feature to upload and translate their documentation to their system. So that's probably the easiest way that we would do that.
And then when it comes to that post go live, kind of how do you help alleviate the what I kind of want to call like the help call, where someone calls and says, how do I do this? How do I do that? Like, how do you assist the teams with deflecting or anticipating those questions in the future?
There's a couple of ways. Outside of ClickLearn, sometimes we use LMS platforms where people can give feedback on processes, or we see a pattern with knowledge sets that we set out there. They fail particular questions, and we drill in on that, and we run sort of lunch and learns or additional sessions on those topics to make sure that the users feel more confident. Then you've got the UX panel, and if they're within doing a process on D365 or Oracle or whatever the platform is, they can ask questions. How do I do this process in real time? That then gives them the answers to, here's the documentation, here's the steps. And it doesn't leave them stuck for so long. And I think that does also take the pressure off the IT support team. And then on IT support, we work with them closely. So if they're seeing a particular pattern of issues being logged, they communicate that with us, and we do either further communications, refer them back to ClickLearn guides, or create new content just to make sure that the users can fully adopt the system.
And then I guess just to kind of close these things out, when someone is reaching out to BR1, what can they expect as far as getting started with their project, and at what points in time should they be reaching out to you for your services?
think there's multiple stages, isn't there? One is when they're thinking of, or they've chosen a particular platform, and we're using D365 in this instant, they can use those standard D365 guides to understand what's coming and what's capable in the system. And that's really the first touch point, just before that kickoff, understanding what the technology can do. So when you're writing out your requirements, you know where the gaps are, and also where you want to take on those standard steps and processes. And then part two is when you're then thinking of that user adoption journey. So sort of where you start your testing journey, that's when you start to see changes. You need to do little tweaks to processes, etc. If you call us in, then we can work with people. You don't need to start documenting that in such a way that you then still have to replay it. If we're on board, we can be living those processes with you and documenting them as we go and getting validation and sign off. When we come in later, I think that's where it's quite labor intensive for the subject matter experts, because they're then having to carve out time to do playbacks and explain processes with us. So starting that testing journey and having us on board is always a lot easier.
Awesome. Thanks. Then with that, thank you so much for joining me today. If anyone would like to reach out to us, I'm Marquis Caldwell with ClickLearn.
And I'm Sija Soterio, Business Change Consultant with BR1.
I'm Katharine Corper-Allen. I'm at BR1 and I'm Business Systems Trainer.
Awesome. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.